They said to us that they had a DNA on the cigarette, but they found that in that guy's home.
Tonight, a family speaks out about their loved one whose disappearance could be linked to a convicted Winnipeg serial killer.
The government of Quebec persists in excluding First Nations from all decision-making related to caribou.
The caribou of north central Quebec are at risk of going extinct.
There's that inner child within each and every one of us.
And teaching the next generation Anishinaabe from YouTube. Tansei, good evening. I'm Krisan Ashkate. Welcome to APTN National News. The parents of a woman whose DNA was found inside the apartment of a Winnipeg serial killer is sharing her story. Ashlee Shingoose from St. Teresa Point, Anishinaabe Nation in northeastern Manitoba, has been missing since March of 2022. Her disappearance fits the timeline of when Jeremy Skibitsky killed 4 Indigenous women. His sentencing for the 4 first-degree murder convictions takes place this week. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley and a warning. This report has some distressing details.
She brought it home from school.
Teresa Shingoose holds a Mother's Day gift her daughter Ashlee made years ago.
A loving person.
Ashlee went missing in March 2022 at 31 years old. The following year, Winnipeg police shared this updated photo of Ashlee and how she could look. Around that same time, community patrols hit the streets for leads, but none went anywhere, and then silence, until this summer during the trial of Jeremy Skibitsky.
When we went to that court, they said to us that they had a DNA on the cigarette, but they found that in that guy's home.
During the trial, it was revealed there were 16 female DNA profiles found inside Skibitsky's apartment. Now, this doesn't mean they were all victims of foul play, but in court, an investigator on the stand said they were still looking into finding the identity of 9 of those women. Last month, Skibitsky was found guilty of 4 first-degree murders for Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and a yet-to-be-identified individual given the name Masquerade Bijiekwe, or Buffalo Woman. Looking at her daughter's ID.
She sent it back when she said, Mom, I don't want to lose my ID cards.
Teresa talks about when news about Buffalo Woman became public in late 2022. She and her husband were swabbed for DNA, but some weeks later they learned they weren't a match. After hearing in court about Ashlee's DNA in that apartment, Albert says police contacted him.
What they were saying to me, we're not giving up yet. After the trial and after they might go and see that person again and ask them questions.
Winnipeg police won't confirm what Albert is saying, but they do say Ashlee's case is still an active missing persons investigation. Often, timelines of missing persons cases are hard to trace. The Shingoose family knows this, as they too struggle with their own memories as time passes. Albert recalls the last time he saw his daughter.
She was slim. She had long hair.
At the time, he was living in Winnipeg's core and going to treatment. He ran into her at a convenience store and invited her to his place.
She slept almost against by my door. And she stayed with me that one night.
When he woke up the next morning, she was gone. He can't remember the exact day, only there was COVID restrictions at the time. By then, Ashlee was transient, her family said, after fleeing domestic violence. Her 2 older kids were already back in St. Teresa Point, living in the family home. Her youngest child she had while living in the city, in care of Child and Family Services.
I should have went out and picked her up.
With a childhood photo of Ashlee and their 3 other kids on the table, they talk about why Ashlee left St. Teresa Point around 2016.
We're overcrowded in each houses. We don't have enough room for anybody.
In the St. Teresa Anishinaabe Nation, there's roughly 300 houses for about 3,500 people. That means there is often 3 or 4 generations living in one home. In the Shingoose home, there were 15 people in the house when Ashlee left.
I want to have my own a place where I can look after my kids, she said.
A vision her mother didn't want to interfere with. Now all these years later, Teresa faces her own spiritual visions.
The Creator had her already. I'll say it's a dream. But it's so very real.
In October, a search will begin at this landfill on the outskirts of Winnipeg for Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron, 2 of the 4 women that Skibitsky killed. Albert believes his daughter may have ended up here too.
If she's in a landfill, we could find her.
He's anxious for this week's sentencing hearing for Skibitsky to be over because Albert believes the police will continue to press Skibitsky about Ashlee.
Now and then I cry. Now and then I get frustrated. Now and then I get mad.
As the family waits and holds on to one of the few physical memories left.
I love you. Love Ashlee.
Pierre Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The sentencing date for Skibitsky is this Wednesday. Tomorrow we will have a story about one of those women he killed and the people behind gifting Buffalo woman her name. And if you are triggered by this report, supports are available 24/7 through the MMIWG support line. That number is 1-844-413-6649. It's been almost 6 weeks since the Assembly of First Nations and federal government finalized a $47.8 billion settlement to reform child welfare programs. Consultations with chiefs across the country are currently underway as the AFN, the Chiefs of Ontario, and the Anishinaabe Aski Nation are seeking support to complete the deal. Cindy Blackstock has been fighting for equality for First Nations child welfare since 2007. She recently spoke to our Dennis Ward about the deal.
Cindy, thanks so much for being with us. It's been a few weeks now, at least, since this package was announced. How are you feeling about the deal that's on the table?
Well, I think that we can do much better for children across the country and ensure that Canada is held accountable for its discrimination. There are some positive things in this agreement that can be built on, but at this point, I think it's falling a bit short of stopping the discrimination and preventing it from happening again, especially after year 10, because it's only a 10-year agreement, Dennis. It's not clear what happens after that.
Right. A lot could change government-wise too. You know, Cindy, when it comes to the consultation side, I know you're out speaking with First Nations who've asked to speak with you. What are you hearing about the consultation process so far?
Well, I think that it's feeling to many people very rushed, especially over the summer, as people are dealing with ceremony and family, and also, sadly, far too many natural emergencies. So, but despite that, what I've been so incredibly impressed with, Dennis, has been how many of the leadership and their experts have really just doubled up the effort, sometimes canceled vacations to make sure they can go through this because they really want to make the best decision for their kids.
Now, in terms of the Canadian Rights Tribunal for non-compliance hearings, you're going to be back with that. What's that one about?
Yeah, that's on Jordan's Principle, Dennis. What we've been seeing is actually we had to negotiate an agreement with Canada for it to comply with Jordan's Principle, and it breached that agreement, which is material to the idea that they want people to agree to this now. And what we're seeing are thousands of cases where the department is not even opening up the request for Jordan's Principle. We've seen children in urgent circumstances not getting the help that they need. And sadly, you know, this has resulted in serious damage for children, including at least the deaths of 2 young children earlier this spring. So we're doing another non-compliance order. And that's being heard on the 10th to the 12th of September. And I'm really hoping APTN will be there, as they always are, to bring this to people, because I think it's really important that we make sure the government complies and doesn't discriminate against any child.
Right. And shortly after that will be the Chiefs meeting here in Winnipeg, the vote on the $49 billion settlement. How confident are you that that's going to pass?
I don't know. I mean, that'll be up to the Chiefs, but I am concerned. I think that there needs to be some substantial amendments to this agreement to ensure that it really meets the needs of every First Nations child across the country. And I'm not sure it's enough time before September. In fact, the National Chief actually said before this was announced, you might remember, Dennis, that people would be given 120 days with the agreement, which seems like a reasonable period of time. Well, that's been shortened. And also French-speaking chiefs police only got a copy of this agreement last week. So they have not even had a chance to really go through it at all on the same terms as everyone else. So I'm hoping that actually gets pushed off and that we use this as a good information and dialogue session in September and put the vote off until people can actually really respect their free, prior, and informed consent, because this is so sacred, this work with children.
Cindy, I guess, do you feel as though you've been put on the sidelines as the AFN is taking the lead on this?
Well, we haven't been a part of it, and that was disappointing because we made clear that, well, we had to leave the agreement in principle process because we wanted to file this non-compliance order with Canada. We actually wanted to be a part of this final settlement agreement, and importantly, not just us, Dennis. Like, we're an organization, but we have so much respect for the frontline people out there delivering these services every day, youth formerly in care themselves, elders, knowledge keepers, and of course, the leadership. This was a fairly closed negotiation, and so there weren't too many people sitting around that table, and I'd like to see that change.
Well, Cindy, appreciate you taking some time, as we know you're busy. Looking forward to seeing you here in Winnipeg in a couple of weeks.
Hey, thank you, Dennis.
Would you go on a 100-kilometer canoe trip down the river? Some Indigenous youth in Ontario sure did. That story and more when we're back in less than 3 minutes. Welcome back. An Anishinaabe language instructor in Northern Ontario is bringing her classroom to YouTube. Barbara Nolan, who lives in Garden River First Nation east of Sault Ste. Marie, is a lifelong speaker of Anishinaabe and a firm believer in the role of language in cultural preservation. APTN's Mike McDonald brings us the story.
An animated version of language instructor Barbara Nolan greets visitors to her YouTube page, which went online for the first time this past weekend. Producing videos geared toward children has been a long-time goal for Nolan, who's been involved in language teaching since 1973, when she developed the first Native as a Second Language program for elementary schools.
I've had that in my mind for a number of years. You know, I should be producing videos for children and animated so that they're interested, they watch. So I met Espican in November at a conference that I was asked to speak on land-based learning. And when I went there, him and I started talking, and then he says, I can do that for you.
It's just me doing all the editing. It's just me editing all the sound, doing the recording. My brother does the recording. He does the lights. I do the animatics for the animators. So I send him this. I say, this is how I want it to look. And he pretties it up, remakes everything, redraws everything.
Nolan's daughter, Colleen, acts as a social media coordinator, travel agent, and overall assistant. She says the aim is to get her mother's videos into daycare facilities and classrooms.
All of the videos are going to be uploaded onto YouTube, as well as future videos. The @Barbara_Nolan, which is also her TikTok, right? So, like she said, for daycare, for childcare, for parents that want to, even parents that want to learn.
There's a child in every one of us, Like you. You probably like to go and play ball with your kid or just act like a kid. There's that inner child within each and every one of us, that's going to enjoy those, and I've heard adults say, well, I'm going to watch those. Those are so cool.
Nolan continues to deliver virtual and in-person instruction in the region. There are 10 videos in her children's series so far, with episodes being uploaded to YouTube this week and more to come at a later date. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
So cool, love that story. Thank you, Mike. Over the weekend, 22 youth embarked on a 100-kilometer canoe journey on the Trent Severn Waterway. It's the 9th year the Kawartha Rotary Club has organized the event. Annette Francis met up with them as they set out from Peterborough, Ontario.
It's the first day together for this group of teens, all between 16 to 18 years old. Following a quick opening circle and encouraging words, they break the ice with the traditional Inuit blanket toss. They'll be learning a lot about Indigenous culture during their 6-day paddle. That's one of the reasons why Oliver Webster, who is originally from Nunavut, has come back for the 3rd year.
Well, I come here a lot because I really enjoy it. I really like learning about a bunch of cultures, hearing a bunch of elders speak, hearing knowledge keepers, fire keepers, and everyone telling me about their stories. I also just really enjoy canoeing a lot. I like the physical activity and the challenge of it, and I just really like the area. It's a really nice area.
Glenn Caritas is the on-water coordinator for the Rotary Club's Adventure in Understanding program. It began in 2014. He said this year brings students from 10 Ontario communities, including Curve Lake First Nation and Rotary Exchange students from Switzerland and Italy.
It's just a marvelous time to be out on the land and water and bringing communities together, Indigenous, settler, and new Canadian. I think it's really important that we come together and we spend time together, and what a perfect way to do this on a canoe trip and just share time. And then in the evenings we meet with elders for teachings from the Mississauga elders, and yeah, what fun we're going to have.
For safety, the students need to pass a swimming test. Stitas Wepo has been in Canada for 5 years. He's originally from Kenya. He says learning about Indigenous culture and nature along the Trent Severn Waterway is why he's here.
It's just going on the water and just being there without my phone. I think that's the highlight for me. And then in terms of the activity, I think is the learning that we're going to do along the way. So as I said, I'm looking forward to learning a lot about trees.
Webster says it's also about the connections.
I leave here usually with a lot of information that I usually don't know of, and I also just like leaving with like a bunch of connections with people on the trip.
The students made their way up to the Peterborough lift locks and stopped for the evening at Trent University. They'll camp out along the route and end the trip on Friday at Curve Lake First Nation. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Peterborough, Ontario.
The 2024 Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games has now wrapped up for another year. That story when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Michelle D sent in this photo of a rainbow seemingly resting on a historical homestead near Lorraine Township in Ontario. Amazing photo. Thank you for sharing. If you have a picture you want to share, send it to share@aptn.ca and it might be our next photo of the day here. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over on the East Coast, Charlottetown 25, Halifax 24. Cartwright 28, and Ujuak 14. Saguenay 28, Gaspé 28. Toronto 31, Ottawa 28 as well. 20 in Wawa, Timmins 21. Thompson 20, Churchill 17. Winnipeg 20, Dauphin 23. 23 in Yorkton, 26 in Saskatoon. Larange 23, Stony Rapids 22. 25 in Fort McMurray, Fort Chipewyan 21. 25 in Calgary, Red Deer 22. Kamloops 20, Bella Coola 17. Prince George 13, Dease Lake 15. Watson Lake 16, Old Crow 19. Watee 19, Norman Wells 18. Fort McPherson 18, Colville Lake 13. Chesterfield 15, Baker Lake 19. And Clyde River 6 and Igloolik 6 as well. The 2024 Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games has now wrapped up for another year. But for the newly crowned Mi'kmaq Summer Games queen, her role is just beginning. And as Angel Moore explains, she entered the pageant at the very last minute.
Your queen of the 2024 Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games pageant is Ashlee Paul!
17-year-old Ashlee Paul beat out 11 other contestants, each representing their Mi'kmaq communities. She represented Eskasoni and did not expect to win. Paul entered the pageant only after another contestant was unable to continue.
It was really last minute. One of the girls, she couldn't do it anymore because she had other plans that interfered with it. So I stepped up and took her spot, and I'm really happy that I did. It was really last minute, but I'm proud of myself.
Earlier that day, backstage, contestants prepared for the pageant. Isabel Denny is 17 years old and is from the Bolidek First Nation. She entered the pageant to make her community proud.
It's been really great. I made lots of friends, and I'm starting to feel more confident in myself and public speaking, and I would definitely do this again if I had the chance.
Sydney Mason is 18 years old and represents the Sabaganagati First Nation. Mason says the experience led to becoming a role model for youth.
And I didn't know how far that reach would actually be until I met someone who really viewed me as a role model, and that made me really happy, but the pressure was on because now wherever I go, who I am, I'm Sydney Mason, but now I'm also representing Sabaganagati.
Contestants were judged on public speaking, talent, poise, and more. The talent show included modern dance dedicated to MMIWG, a karate demonstration, and traditional dancing. Leon Denny is an Eskasoni counselor. He is here to support his community and family.
I know they do a lot of work during the week to prepare for themselves for this event, and I'm very proud of all the women because everybody has a different challenge that they face, and they are doing a very wonderful job.
The house was packed at the Membertou Trade and Convention Centre. As the judges deliberated, the crowd was wowed by the entertainment, beginning with youth performing the Kojawa, a traditional Mi'kmaq dance. Fiddler Morgan Toney is from the Wegmacuk First Nation. His music inspired Michaela Gugu and Gliana Silivoy wearing her jingle dress to take to the stage. The dancing continued, mixing tradition with new. That is fancy shawl dancer Rory Muse of the Membertou First Nation. She opened for KG Denny, Membertou's first drag artist. Performers celebrated Mi'kmaq culture throughout the night, which has inspired Paul's plans for her reign as queen.
I want to start up more culture and language, like hands-on activities and more things to do for our youth, because we need to take back our language because it's our blood, it's what we grew up doing, it's our history. We need to make more history with that.
The Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games will be held at the Wegmacuk First Nation next year. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Membertou First Nation, Unamagi, Mi'kmaq for Cape Breton.
It looked like a fun celebration, and that is your evening national newscast for this Monday, August 26th. It's now or never to get your kids' school supplies this week. We're back again tomorrow for your midday and evening newscast. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News, hi masicho miigwech. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again.